Guess who starts a podcast without having any idea what the topic is going to be? Yeah, you got that right. It's this girl. So we had a mutual friend who told me that Eileen has such an interesting, intriguing story. And I said, okay, let's have her on. So all I knew about Eileen was that she had 8 children and 7 stepkids. And that's a pretty big story anyway, but there was so much more. So I hope you enjoy it. Here we go. Hello, it's Dawn, and this is my podcast, Dawnversations. It's a variety show about real life stuff, and there's something on here for everybody. So if that sounds good to you, let's go. Hello.
Hello.
I'm so happy to have you on the show. So thank you so much.
Yeah.
So you have 8 children. That in itself is mind blowing. How did that happen? I mean, I know how it happened.
Wait, do you really know?
That's a lot of kids.
Yeah, 8 of my own and then 7 step kids with my new husband. So we've been married 2 years. So adjusting to all of that. But yeah, my kids range from age 5 is my youngest and 20 is my oldest. And there's one girl in the mix who's about to turn 9. So yeah, so definitely crazy.
Oh my gosh, that is like one kid is a lot of work. I cannot even. Are the older ones very helpful? Like, do they help raise the little ones?
Oh yeah, all of them, all seven. They spoil him, and yeah, it's funny because he's a combination of all the 7 personalities, and it's so funny. You just see like the last one. It's like he gets sad because he's like, Mom, I just want to have fun. Like it's all about entertainment for him, and but he's loved. He knows he's loved, and I have there's a story behind all of that of how we have our youngest. So I used to be married to an NFL athlete. We were married for 16 years. He was a solid athlete, a solid just person, like a pillar in the community. So he played for 9 years, and basically he ended up joining a cult. So yeah, that's what happened. And so it was all about like polygamy was okay now. And, there was racism involved. He was probably the most clean cut person that I knew. And so, being in that limelight, being in all that, and actually we were known to kind of help other couples we helped them with their marriages. So it was super humbling to be in this position and going, oh my gosh, what's going on? And so that was about 7 years after he was done with the game. It kind of showed itself because there's a thing with the transition out of the game that is super hard that people don't understand. There's the glitz and glamour that people think it is, but when you're on the inside, you know how hard it is. Whether the pressure of family, finances, cheating. Like I had a shopping addiction, so I cover all that in my book. Oh, but yeah, wow. So it's definitely been a lot, and this was 2017. So I'm obviously, as you hear me, you're hearing a whole healed, who's gone through it and is now at that point, like, okay, like I got through this, and thank God, like things are restored. I'm obviously newly married. So yeah, so it's like now I want to share like, okay, these are the great things that happened through that, how I got through it. So yeah, so that's what my book is about, is sharing all that stuff.
Okay, so that's a lot to unpack. So when you guys, were you religious prior, like through your marriage? Were you guys pretty religious?
Yes. So we were Christian, and so for him, he was a very outspoken Christian in sports. So there's some that are like that, and there's some that are really like that. It's like you ask him a sports question and he'll say Jesus, and it's kind of like a lot. It was like not even answering the question. He was probably on the annoying side of things, like interviewers didn't want to interview him because they knew, oh man, it's going to turn into a religious thing or a Christian response. Yeah, so that's how it was. So it makes it more ironic that of all people that would fall away, that left his family. I mean, it was like in where we were from too. I'm just gonna say we were from Green Bay, super small. So everything was out in the open. It was like, wait, who? Like this is happening to them? Being married to an athlete is big, but then we're an interracial couple. We have a lot of kids. So it's like you can't avoid the public eye, period.
Right. So did you like mention his name in the book?
No, I did change. Everything else was pretty much the same. I did change his name in the book, and unless you read, which I go straight to the chapters whenever I read a book, but there's like the intro, and then it says names have been changed for, out of respect and privacy of those involved. So
clearly you're not together anymore. Is he still in a cult?
yeah. So we had a very big home. We fared well together. He would, and again, this is what I talk about, is trying to help women as they're walking through this journey now. So one of the chapters I get into is the money pressure and family stuff like that. After all was said and done, we had this big home that ended up being kind of a sect of the cult. So the cult is out in another state, but it's like, it's headquartered in this one state. And so there's different sects around the country. So it's Hebrew Israelites. And so it's along the lines of that. I don't know if you know anything about that.
No, I don't.
Yeah, it's basically this thing where if you're not Black, you basically aren't going to heaven. You kind of have to have these kind of alternative ways to get there. As a woman, you're not created in the image of God, and so your contingency to go to heaven is how obedient you are to your husband.
Are the kids involved with him?
No, unfortunately. Well, I know that all kids need their dad, but no, thank God right now there's not any contact. The teaching is super toxic. It's very shaming. I'm property, the kids are property. It's really bad teaching, and it's very confusing.
My mind is spinning. So I would assume that his parents were still wanting to be part of you guys' lives, or are they also part of this cult?
Well, his mom passed away a long time ago. His dad had Parkinson's, and so there's not been connection. I actually talked to his sister. We are definitely on the same page. She understands, and she grew up with him. So there was always kind of a legalistic side of him, and so for me and him, when it's like, husband and wife, they're opposites, and they complement each other. So we kind of complemented each other in the sense that I was pretty laid back, and he was the disciplined one. He was very rigid, but together we just it worked.
It was a balance.
Yeah, exactly, the balance. And so once he got into the cult, that's when I started losing my voice. It was like it's like he kind of wanted a clone of him, and that's literally kind of how he looked at it. And when women in the eyes of anybody, or anybody in the eyes of someone, is not valued, then what you say doesn't matter. And so that's kind of the route that we went.
Did it feel like it happened really fast, or was it like a slow progression?
With my daughter being born, that was kind of the big part of it. So he always wanted a lot of boys. He would joke around and he'd say, like, I want the 12 tribes of Israel. This is like the biblical stuff. And so when we had our girl, it really did change everything. For the most part, things were good. It's just after she was, my daughter was born, it was kind of a little bit, different. And then, it's really hard for those guys to transition out of the game. So, it was slow. It was like a couple of years for sure of really hard. And this is what happened too. He was trying to get into a next career. He's always good at finances. So he was applying for his certified financial planning license. So basically it was going to school all over again. And that in itself, like when anybody goes back to school, it's hard. But then when you have a family, It's
Right.
like, yeah, it's total stress. So it was a couple years of stress, and you could tell it was taking toll on our marriage, taking toll on our family. But, you know, at the end of that, it was like we were thinking, okay, once this is done, we're going to get back to normal. And so once he did finally pass, it was like a few days of like, oh, like great. He even was apologizing for, you know, for not being there. He's like, you know, we're going to restore this time. And after a couple days, it was like we knew we needed big, like big help. But as we were getting help, it just got worse. And then during that time, that's when he found this cult, and it was through Google, of all things.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, yeah.
What made you protect his name?
Um, I that's just how I was. I mean, when you're in the limelight and stuff like that, like, yeah, it's, I wanted life to be as normal as possible. And
Mm-hmm.
so I knew he was like I said, he wasn't like he wasn't just a minor person. It was like he was so outspoken, and because of who we were in the community, I didn't want it to get out. I mean, I was literally trying to call someone, help me to call the cops, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was just stuff like that. It was just trying to be really, really subtle. So
A lot of men in general have a hard time when they retire.
definitely.
It's their identity. It's all that they have known themselves as. And so when that part of them is no longer happening, I've heard a lot of times that a lot of men have a lot of difficulty in not getting depressed, and
Yes.
the transition, some guys just can't make it through. They just
Right.
go, start drinking or drink worse, turn to habits, gambling, whatever. It's just they've lost themselves. That's really sad.
Yeah, totally. And I honestly, I didn't see it coming, because I thought we did so well. And so when it did start like kind of turning into, I just thought it was like, just couples fighting and struggling
Yeah.
through the transition, which I knew was going to be hard, but I didn't realize. I mean, obviously for us, it took a major crazy turn, but the cult kind of resembled the life of sports. There was like this high thing of like respect for the men. Obviously, women, like, I mean, shoot, if polygamy is okay, then, like that's another.
Right.
It was a similarity of like even sports. You're having barked orders all the time, and so like it was just comfortable to have this leader that emphasize those things, emphasize for the respect of men, or for men. It emphasized pulling yourself up by your bootstraps, and it was about performance. And so that's it just was kind of a comfortable, and this is all in hindsight, comfortable like transition into
Mm-hmm.
what he knew. So and I addressed that, I talk about that in the book too. You just mentioned like, it's hard for men. I mean, for these guys, it's like you just think, oh, they're done, they go on to the next thing. Either they have all this money, which most of them don't, or like they'll get into sports, commentating or coaching. And I mean, if you think about all the guys percentage wise, I don't know the percentage, but if you think about all the people that do go there,
Right.
there's a whole lot that don't. So what happens to them? It's hard for these guys to just, a lot of guys just play video games because they don't know what else to do. They weren't prepared, and as much as they've been told theoretically this is only for a short time, a lot of them just think it doesn't end. So it's,
Sure.
yeah.
And their bodies are shot. I could see where that would just be like, now what?
Yeah, and a lot of them, it's a grieving process. I mean, if you think about it, like they've been doing this for years, and they've been with a core group of guys. It's just that the locker room camaraderie. There's a lot of that literally can be stripped from you in a day, and you're supposed to act like it's okay.
Yeah.
So for just a big tough guy to have to grieve that, or kind of be sad about it, it's like I can understand that they just feel like they can't, they're not supposed to, they're supposed to be these tough men who just, oh, this is done and let me just go on to the next thing, when really it's definitely not. So
Gosh, that's amazing that you have so much empathy. that you're feeling sorry about him and the situation, a lot of people would just be
Yeah.
angry and mad.
I think the hardest thing for me, I just knew like my faith, I was that was the instruction, bless those who bless you, pray for those who are mean, to you, forgive. I mean, those things I took to heart in soldier mode, not even like emotionally, but it was like, no, I have to do these things because if I don't, I am not going to be free. I have
Yeah.
a tone to set for my kids. So I was like, I'm going to choose joy. I'm going to choose to forgive him. It doesn't mean that I don't, that I let him run over me. Obviously, I could, I couldn't do that. But it was like, I know that the decisions I make in the midst of this is going to determine my, where I go, how my kids look at life, how my kids look at him, how my kids look at God. So there was a lot that I knew that was on my shoulders to be an incentive to choose right and not play victim, because that could have been an easy thing to do for sure,
Oh my
or
gosh,
just endure
yeah.
it.
So what in the world did you do? I mean, you've got these 8 kids. Were you working?
No, I wasn't working. I was a stay-home mom. Through this process in Little Wisconsin, I had great support. I mean, like I said, it's pretty. I'm not gonna lie. It's juicy stuff in the sense that when this was when this was happening, that's why I'm like, okay, how do I keep this lighthearted? Because I mean, even when I say it's such a hard, obviously hard topic, but even in it, it's like it's exciting and it's like, whoa, this is crazy. Because when in the midst of this, he wanted to take us to the cult, and so he was saying, hey, let's go to this place. This is this ministry, and I googled it. I'm like, who is this and what is this? And I googled and it had the name of the organization, and then right after that, it was allegations for 5 years of people claiming it was a cult, people's families messed up, all these things. And so I was like, there's no way that we can go to this place. So
Yeah.
we had to have an escape plan to step away, because he was I mean, we tried to have intervention. We were hoping that he would change his mind. He didn't. And so I just knew, like, we cannot do this. And so, yeah, so we had to escape for about 40 days, getting out of the situation. And I mean,
Whoa.
it was pretty crazy. And here's the thing, what I talked about number 5, or sorry, my 5-year-old, I thought I was protecting my 7. I did not know I was pregnant with number 8. And so it was like 4 months after. It was 4 months, and I had just had 2 miscarriages. So I'm 4 months along, and I had no idea. And so
Oh
all
my
of a sudden,
God.
I'm seeing this belly, and I literally told my parent, like, okay, I need a pregnancy test to prove that I'm just bloated. And of course, it's a clear blue easy, and it says, take the test, and it says pregnant. And I was just like, no way. And I Googled, okay, clear blue easy, what does it say if you're not pregnant? Duh. It would have said not pregnant, So I'm like, oh my God, you have like a crazy sense of humor. And so my youngest has never met his real dad. So
Oh
yeah,
gosh.
yeah.
Were you friends, like legitimate friends, not fake friends, with the other football players' wives? Could you confide in them, or was it just like we're keeping this behind closed doors?
That was most of the people that we played most of our career with were totally like, gone. I mean, we had stayed in contact, but we were one of the few that stayed in Green Bay.
Hmm.
So no, like none of the people that I really played with, the wives,
Okay.
they did not know. And I really had to keep it. I mean, there was really at the time in the heat of it, there was probably only 5 women that knew. And then gradually started coming, just telling other people that I felt would be a help. Um, and even in that, what happened was, like, here I'm trying to keep it under wraps, trying to protect us, trying to protect his reputation. Well, at one point, then he starts putting on Facebook and YouTube videos about me being the gold digger and all these crazy things, because that's what the cult does. They kind of put people on blast. And I wanted to defend myself, but I knew that God was saying no. Like, this, I'm your defense. And so here I'm keeping it under wraps. When we escaped, so we escaped for over a month, I came back looking like the crazy person. And, like the principal or our pastor were like, hey, you got to go home. And I'm like, okay, like, you guys don't understand this. It took a little bit for them to finally, I mean, all those people that were thinking I was crazy were the ones that came back to say, I'm so sorry. Like, we're here for you. We're gonna help you through it. And so, yeah, so it's just, it was there, like you said, there's so much to unpack. And so I don't know if I'm going all over the place, but yeah, it was for sure a crazy ride. I mean, those 5 girls that knew, they were in the intense part of it. I mean, through the escape, through like him finding out, or we thought he found out where we were. I mean, we kind of joke around. We're like, this is a Lifetime movie. Like, who's your character? Like, who do you want to play you? You know, I'm like,
Yeah.
I want you. You know, just so it was kind of like, man, that like this makes like normal life seem boring. But I mean, it's God got us through. Like, there's so many like awesome things that came through this, and I mean, yeah, it is like, it's just, gosh,
It does seem
so
like
many
a
things.
movie. It seems like something that you would just watch and be like, "Wow, that would be crazy if that ever happened."
Yeah, yeah.
Were you you obviously went into hiding, so you were in
Mhm.
somewhat afraid. When did that pass where you felt like I'm okay to have my kids out, and I mean that there's no threat there, that you're not worried about him coming into your life?
Well, we knew, so this was in the summer. So we left in the middle of July, and it was the leaving. And this is actually advice from his old boss. And he says, Eileen, he goes, you have to do 2 things. You have to get a family lawyer, and you got to get out of there. And I said, well, what happened? What do you mean? I said, what? I thought we were going to do intervention. He goes, no, this is intervention. And so the idea was to leave so that he would have this reality check of, this is what's on the line. Are you
Yeah.
picking cult, or are you picking this, you know, our family? And so it was supposed to be a temporary thing to just step away. And so during that time, while we were away, we did have a mediator that, you know, that helped us to talk, or like I would send a text to her. So it was kind of a texting back and forth through this person. And then, you know, when school came around, it was like, okay, like, do we go back? Do we, you know, what do we do? And so we went back, and we didn't go back home. We ended up staying in a 3-bedroom duplex that my friend owned. So like most of us were on the floors.
Oh
Uh,
my
yeah,
gosh.
pretty crazy. And um, so yeah, we went back, and then we started counseling. And by the 5th week, and I didn't know this, he ended up, he had not gone to the cult that whole time. But before that, our last session of counseling, he ended up going to the cult, and he came back, and I knew this was going to happen. Once he was there, he was going to come back, and I knew there was like there wasn't going to be any changing. And so when he did come back, we went to the counseling session, and he basically said that he is not going to do any sort of counseling or anything unless it's under the head of that cult. And I
Oh,
said, well, I'm not doing it. And so, you know, like the whole time from mid-July to November, I just thought, okay, he's going to come around. It's just a matter of time. It's just a matter of time. And so here I find out I'm pregnant. I tell him, you know, he's thinking it's not his. So he wasn't involved in that at all. And, you know, so here we're in this 3-bedroom duplex, and I'm like, okay, we're outgrowing this place. And it's super, you know, small, which was kind of convenient after you going from a huge house to little. It was kind of nice, but it was, we outgrew it. And I'm like, okay, I'm having a baby. Like I don't know when he's gonna come around, if he ever does. And so November, December is when I finally knew I can't stop my life. I can't stop these kids' lives, because they were asking me about sports and things like that. I'm like, guys, I can't make
yeah.
decisions about your father. But it was like, I can't do this anymore. We gotta just go on with life, and hopefully he'll come back around. So that's how we did life, and he ended up marrying someone pretty quickly.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow. Poor lady.
yeah, right. And she's 15 years younger, so it was kind of, it's like she was from another state, a cult from another state. So it's kind of somewhat arranged. It just worked like that. And even still, I was like, you know, God, I trust you. We would pray for him. And I'm like, Lord, I don't even want this anymore, but if that's what you want, I trust you. And kept on going, just worked on just, you know, just making life as normal as possible. And it wasn't until I found out that he had his first child where I was like, okay, like, what is he going to do? leave another family to join our family again. I'm like, okay, no, I'm done. And I was like, God, I've done what I could. Like, I've tried. And that's when I knew that he released me. I just felt this peace, like that I did. I did my part and I can move on. And I felt peace about it finally. And that whole time I didn't even have a desire for a relationship. I wasn't bitter at men. It was just like, I don't have time for this. And once I felt like that peace came, all of a sudden I'm like, oh, like I kind of want a best friend again, or I kind of want, it'd be nice to like be with someone. And so it's interesting. Like the way I see it is like God is like, he started opening my heart to the idea of it again.
It's so amazing how it turned out happy for you. I mean, gosh, in the midst of it, when you are in the middle of drama and that's
Mm-hmm.
all you know, it
Yeah.
literally feels like you're drowning.
Right. I think a lot of my drowning was way before all of it came out. Like I said, there was 2 to 3 years of really pretty much being isolated. Like I didn't tell anybody. And when I finally told my five friends, it was another year of at least having them and hoping and thinking that things were going to turn around quick, but they never did. And so that was 2 to 3 years of me just growing in strength. When this thing finally came, like when it finally came down, I was at the point where I'm like, nothing is going to penetrate my heart anymore. And I'm like, you're not going to hurt me. And really it was there was a mode of just protecting my kids. So it just didn't faze me anymore. And honestly, I chose joy, and it was weird. People thought I was crazy because they're like, why, how is she so happy when all this stuff is going on? And
Right.
not to say I didn't cry a ton of tears, but really at that time where everybody knew, I had already gone through the worst part.
Yeah. Already went through the grieving process. And it's
Right.
interesting too. You do go into mama bear mode and you will
Oh
do
yeah.
anything to protect your child. And
Yeah.
even if that means, saving face and not,
Mm-hmm.
showing your emotions, you can do that
Yes.
in the shower or in private. But yeah, there's us women, we are strong people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It
Yeah.
just never ceases to amaze me. So, what is your book? Where can people find your book?
My book is on Amazon. It just came out. It just launched yesterday, actually. So so it's called Sidelined No More. Yeah, on Amazon. I also have a website, ladybellator.com. So you
Okay.
can find that on there too. And the crazy thing is, I was hoping to be done with this book last year. And, I was in Wisconsin thinking that I was going to move to California, like just like, okay, I think we're supposed to move back. Well, that was March when I thought to move. And by mid-June, we were totally moved. So with all the move and stuff, I didn't get done with the book until just recently. There's also another book project that I'm a part of. It's called Broken Chapters, and it's 21 different authors of 21 like broken chapters in their lives. So that's also coming out the same week, which is cool because I would not have been able to sync that. It was
Yeah.
on my own. So that's on Amazon too. So Broken Chapters. So the cool thing about it is I've had pre-readers. None of them are part of pro sports. And so so I have I'm slowly getting out to the women who, like, the ones that I'm connected to that still play or that played with, when I say played, the teammates,
Right.
wives, like they're so pumped about it. And so they're just beginning, I'm probably today. But the ones that have read it, I've been so encouraged because they're like, wow, this is like, I am not a part of pro sports, but this totally hits home with me. So stay home moms, women in general, just dealing with identity, dealing with like, who they are and what they're meant for. So it's been super encouraging to hear that this helps and benefits people way outside of pro sports.
Oh my gosh, 100%. Because if anything, you just want to help other people.
Yeah,
If you're going to go through it, you just want to do whatever you can to try and make it easier on somebody else that might think
totally.
they are alone and nobody would ever understand.
Yes, that's exactly my heart. I was like, if I'm gonna go through this, Lord, get glory, let it be a help. And so,
Right.
yeah, that's what's been happening. And really, and so I'm very encouraged by, the feedback I'm getting.
Oh my gosh, and that's amazing. I had no idea before we spoke that any of this was going down this week. So we'll have to
Yeah,
see. Maybe I can get this out a little bit sooner so that
awesome. Yeah.
I'm so proud of you.
Thank you so much. Well,
Uh,
thanks for having me. This is my first first podcast. I've got another one next week, but this is my first. So so you're number one on that.
Well, that's great. You got the easy one out of the way. Mine's pretty low key. So
I'm gonna make this lighthearted, even though it's a hard topic. I'm gonna make this lighthearted and provide hope and encouragement for women.
100%. And I'm a firm believer. If you don't laugh, you'll cry. So you've got to find the bright light. You just have to. I mean, it'll just eat you up otherwise. So, well, it was so great to meet you. I'm so excited for you and for everything, for your kids.
Thank you so much.
Oh, it's awesome. And I will be in touch. We'll talk soon.
Okay, sounds good.
All right, thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.